have to say that the piece that Jim did, I hadn't seen that from Libya. It just put me right back there. It was the same road that I'd been working on for 3 weeks, and it was just it was a pretty terrifying place to work. Those feelings of being out there, it is very stressful, and everyone processes that in a different way. For me, I usually kind of put it aside until I leave, and then I don't really realize until I'm in a calm place how much it has wound me up. Other people react, instantly on the scene. They'll become emotional or that night. But the thing about, and something that David touched on earlier about support and about having each other to talk to in their situation and as they're being detained, that same thing can apply in the field. It's a small community of people who all are working in the same places over a number of years. There are people that I've known for 10, 12, 15 years, and I basically only know these people in places where there's conflict going on. If I actually see them here in New York, it's kind of weird. It's like I don't even really. It's like, wow, we're in this great, safe place, and but that community is very tight. And of course, there are always people who don't like each other and competition, all this. But at the end of the day, all that melts away. And this is something that we really saw. I'm old friends with Chris Hondros, who was killed recently in Libya. He actually gave me my first newspaper job in Troy, Ohio, many years ago, right when I got out of college. And his funeral in New York City was just unbelievable. That really was a testament to how close and how much support there is. People who all over 1,000 people all came together, and it was really an amazing bond. Whether it's 1,000 people or 3 people or 1 person, whether Jim has just 1 person to talk to where he is right now, that is an incredible, meaningful thing, and gives, I'm sure, him and everyone else a lot of strength.
David, I spoke with Michael Foley, wherever you are, we had a great conversation on Friday. I know that Jim and Claire have been able to contact their families. This is at the end of April, and this is a positive day because those are very positive signs. What would you advise a freelance reporter in terms of preparing to go out to a conflict zone like Afghanistan? What can they do if you're going out there quickly to kind of prep themselves up?
I think that it's really important to get to know the organization you're reporting for. As far as I've heard, Global Post and The Atlantic have done a great job of supporting these families as they try to deal with this. The unfortunate truth I can speak to, and this was mentioned earlier, I was detained once, Tyler's been detained more times than me, but I was detained once in Bosnia at the age of 27. I was very young, very similar to Jim and Claire, and then detained again more recently in Afghanistan. And there is less neutrality for journalists. You are seen as targets. You're seen, people have fantastically exaggerated ideas of what kind of ransom they can get for you if they kidnap you. They have these fantastic conspiracy theories that we're all working for the CIA. So I encourage you as freelance journalists to get out there and cover these stories, but make sure you're aligned with some kind of news organization. Even if you're freelancing, ask them what will happen if something goes wrong. And if they won't help you, then maybe you shouldn't report for them. I mean, this is not a game. It's an incredibly serious situation. You are professionals. You're risking your lives when you go to these places, and you have a right to ask editors these questions and to find out what they're going to do for you if something goes wrong. And don't sell yourself short. I mean, that's the most important advice I would give you. And you mentioned phone calls. Just one thing. When Jim and Claire come home, and I know this was already conveyed in the phone calls, and when I had phone calls to my family, the first thing I did was apologize. And they, in some strange way, will see this crowd here tonight, Sunday, and feel bad about it. They'll feel very guilty that they've put their, families and friends through this. And I ask you to please welcome them home and embrace them for following their calling. I mean, you hear it in Claire's background and Jim's background. This is about giving a voice to the voiceless. This is about helping others. And I'm sure they feel terrible about what everyone's gone through. But the people to blame here is the Libyan government, not, Jim and Claire and other journalists who are simply doing their jobs. And, again, I applaud you all for getting out there and trying to give a voice to the voiceless. And I'm confident that they'll be home soon.
So I thought we'd just open up for a couple of questions, Q&A. Is that okay, Heather? If anybody has a question for David or Tyler?
Sure.
Anyone?
In a case like this, is all media is all covering good coverage, or you have to be careful about covering it when journalists?
So she said, in a case like this, is all media coverage good coverage, or do you have to be, what did you say?
Careful about how you cover it, or if you cover
Or do you have to be mindful or careful about how you cover it?
I think as long as your reporting is honest and your coverage is honest, then it should be made public. I mean, there are certain things in the case of, for example, certain situations that you don't want to publicize. In the case of, for example, when David was kidnapped, there was a period of time where it wasn't publicized, and there was a lot of debate about whether that was going to be something that would be in the press or be not in the press, and how that would affect. Would that give more attention to where he's located and this kind of thing? But aside from very, very, very specific situations like that, I mean, we're journalists. It's hypocritical not to cover things.
David,
Yeah, in this case, which involves the government, and I've talked to 10 other journalists who've been taken captive in the last couple of years, it's pretty clear that when it's a government, when it's the Libyan government, when it's the Iranian government, when it's the North Korean government, go public, cover it, shame them. And they should be ashamed for what they're doing. This is a crime. These are unarmed civilians who are simply doing their job that they've now held for a month. It's absolutely the right thing to do, and as Tyler said, report the truth. Absolutely. In my case, it was kept quiet. Initially, I was grabbed by insurgents, and essentially insurgents that were masquerading as insurgents. I saw them more as a criminal group, and there was a sense that it would not help to make it public. It would sort of raise their expectations in terms of ransom. But again, this is the Libyan government, and I applaud both families for how they've handled this from the beginning. The more reporting, the better. Jim and Claire should know they're not forgotten, and the Gaddafi government should know, they're not forgotten, and this is not acceptable what they're doing.
anyone else? Speak now. All right. That's it.